My name is Maria Cadenas. I'm running for Santa Cruz City Council.
Many Santa Cruz residents have been affected by the pandemic with concerns around childcare, unemployment, and more. As a member of the City Council, what will you bring to the COVID-19 response and reopening plans?
So the pandemic has been devastating to many families, especially low-income families, those in essential services, particularly for women and particularly for communities of color. In Santa Cruz specifically, we have a huge dependency on hospitality and services as part of our industry. And those jobs were pretty much decimated immediately following the announcement of the pandemic. What's hardest about it is that it's coming on what I would say an existing crisis in terms of income and wealth inequality in the city that only made things worse. So immediately after the announcement of the pandemic, I launched UndocuFund Monterey Bay, knowing that those hardest hit will be those that were undocumented and would not qualify for any benefits from the state or federal government. To date, UndocuFund has raised close to $3 million for those families. What surprised a lot of people was that the majority of the initial distributions were coming into the city of Santa Cruz for our hospitality workers, for caregivers, for housekeepers, and those in services. And as the pandemic keeps going on, they still haven't been reemployed or very limited so. So when we look at the recovery itself, we need to be looking at ways that we can ensure that we focus our recovery on those hardest hit, right? And I think part of it is really starting to question how we are distributing the industries in the city. So when we look at recovery, there's both the economic aspect of the small businesses, primarily those owned by people of color, primarily owned by women. And what are the types of loans and capital that we can help them to reestablish or continue their transitions? The other one is we have a lot of small businesses that are owned by baby boomers who were already looking to retire in 5 to 10 years. So if we have viable businesses that are in that cohort where the labor force is predominantly people of color, predominantly women, what can we do to facilitate and capitalize the transition or the sale of that business to those workers so that they can build their wealth that way? And then when we talk about workforce development or what comes next for the city, well, let's look at type of industries that we can bring in outside of hospitality that use the same talents and expertise that we have in the city, especially for those workers that have been displaced, and make sure that they get the support. And last but not least, this is all tied to housing. You know, quite frankly, a lot of the workers that are in hospitality and services were already living in very poor conditions and overcrowded conditions. The affordability was out of their hands to even live here. So if we can do anything, we should be looking at, A, how do we keep them housed so they're not displaced for those that are housed? And secondly, what can we do to accelerate the affordable housing volume that we have in the city? While we look at a part of recovery, that being a critical piece of it.
Amid the current racial justice movement at the national and local level, what response would you like to see the council take?
Yeah, I think it is the issues that we're seeing brought to light are issues that have been around for a long time. I think as a city, what I would like to say is that over the years, we have seen a progression of the city in Santa Cruz in terms of politics, moving to a more progressive level. However, even as that was taking place, the racial inequities in the city have not shifted. So regardless of what label you'd like to call yourself as far as a politician, I think as a neighbor and as a human being and as a city, we have to take great action in addressing and calling out the inequities around race and gender that pervade in this city. And when we're talking specifically in terms of justice and safety, you know, we have to look at systems, and systems are innocuous because, you know, it's the same thing with housing. We can look at housing and say, you know, we want the feel of the city that we have, and we have every right to do that, but not on the backs of having single family homes overcrowded and in poor conditions for low income families. Similarly, we cannot call to have a justice system on the backs of people who feel their life threatened for a stop or ignored by police. And it doesn't take away that there might be great policemen, but the system is not made for them. And so we have to take really thoughtful action and recognizing the humanity and the lived experiences of our communities of color and our low-income communities in determining the systems that we move forward with.
What is one more thing you want voters to know about your platform or goals for Santa Cruz County?
I'm running for people and planet. That's what I'm running for. And I believe in having an independent voice, a thoughtful, critical approach to things, but most important, putting people and planet at the center of every decision we make. We have a great city. I am blessed to live here. We're blessed to be here, but we also have a long road ahead. And right now we're facing both a critical point and a great opportunity to embrace this pivot point and say, okay, we've done great things and we failed at these. How can we address them now? I will work with everybody. That is I'm an extremely collaborative leader. I believe that we can get things done. Just because they seem impossible doesn't mean that we can achieve it. We have to be creative, we have to be innovative, and we have to think as neighbors. As the city of Santa Cruz, we are the largest city in this county. We can lead by example on where we want to go. And that includes really working with Sacramento, really working with federal government, working with the regional partners. Look, if Silicon Valley and Monterey are not doing their part on housing, we're never going to be able to address it. Nor we can expect Watsonville to keep doing all the affordable housing and then complain about traffic. You know, we have to be much more thoughtful in partnership and less isolated in our thinking of who we are as a city. We are neighbors to each other and the cities around us, and we need to work together. That is just how I lead. That's how I plan to lead. And it starts really for recognizing the humanity in each of us and our responsibility to be stewards of the planet in which we live. That is my platform. I believe that's what we have to do. I believe that's the experience that I have. I'm a problem solver at heart. I have over 20 years of working really to implement innovation in ways that are pragmatic, sustainable, and humane. I mean, it starts, I believe everything starts with love. And it may seem maybe not the most politically statement you hear out there, but that is why we cannot afford politics as usual. We cannot afford to create a Santa Cruz that pits one camp against the other when we have such huge problems ahead of us. We need to work together. And that doesn't mean we lose sight of values and we lose sight of people. So that's what I'm going for. And equity, we just have to put that at the center of everything we do. It is not an issue, it's a frame on how we approach things, and we cannot lose sight of that. Otherwise, we lose our future. That is where we need to go. The change is not easy. To assume that we can achieve homes for everybody in the city, to assume that we can achieve living wages and livable jobs in the city without change is to fool ourselves. But to run away from that change out of fear and discomfort is putting behind where our possibility is. And so I want us to have a future for Santa Cruz for all. And that means being brave enough to embrace the uncertainty with courage and with humanity.